The intensifying diplomatic maneuvering around the Russia-Ukraine war moves to London, with Volodymyr Zelensky meeting with Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz to discuss the US-backed peace plan. There's mounting pressure on Kiev amid speculation that Trump may walk away from the peace efforts. Meanwhile, the region watches as Syria marks 1 year since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. What began with hope for change has turned into a complicated transition under the new leadership of Ahmed al-Sharaa. In our second segment, we attempt to answer the question, where does Syria go from here? I'm Henny Saif. Let's get in focus. Welcome back. President Volodymyr Zelensky met European leaders in London as peace talks to end Ukraine's nearly 4-year war with Russia continue to stall. The New York Times reported. It was hosted by Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer at 10 Downing Street. Zelensky joined French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz for closed-door talks focused on sensitive issues in the diplomatic process. The European leaders reiterated that Ukraine's struggle is tied to Europe's own security, with Merz saying the destiny of this country is the destiny of Europe. They signaled support for Ukraine's military, including air defense and long-term financing, while rejecting what they view as unacceptable demands from President Vladimir Putin, including full control over the Donbass. Zelensky acknowledged deep differences over territorial questions and appeared resigned to continued fighting, even as he remains engaged in negotiations. The meeting highlighted growing tensions with Washington after President Trump criticized Zelensky and promoted a U.S. peace proposal that neither side has embraced. For more on this meeting, we're joined from Kiev by Mr. Ivan Us, the advisor at the Ukraine National Center. Welcome, Mr. Us. The talks in London bring Zelensky together with Starmer, Macron and Merz. What does this format reveal about Europe's attempt to build a united front behind Ukraine as peace talks stall?
Greetings to you, Henny. Greetings to all Qnews audience. Thank you for invitation. You know, Henny, actually, as for me, it's another signal from Europe that Europe will be with Ukraine. That attempt of the United States of America to dictate to Europe what they should do and to what territories they should sacrifice in the European territory, and Ukraine situated in Europe. Of course, it's not this ideas is not welcome not only in Ukraine but in Europe too, because in Europe, everyone understands that you should not award the aggressor. And when you say that let's give territories to Russia, it means, first of all, violation of the local US legislation, because in 2017, Donald Trump signed the law that made a ban for recognition of any annexation made by Russia in Ukraine. And now he wants actually to violate the law that he actually signed. And of course, it's violation of the international law, because you should not say that, oh, if you succeed in annexing some territories, it will be your territories. That's why Ukraine, as I said, not glad. And now in London, we say that not only Ukraine not glad of that idea, but European partners too, let alone ideas of US to use the frozen assets, Russian frozen assets situated in Europe. Of course, Europe so not glad, so that's why it one more time we say that Ukraine is not alone, Europe with Ukraine. Thank you, Henny.
Well, Macron's office actually said Ukraine is not on the brink of collapse, but peace is not immediate. So how do you interpret this message? Is the office trying to water it down? Is Europe trying to show confidence while managing expectations?
So of course Europe would want to say that Ukraine plus Europe has cards too. It's as for me, it's a direct response to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump in February of this year said that Ukraine have no cards on their hands. Several weeks ago, he repeats that phrase that, oh, you remember I said about no cards in Ukrainian hands. And now Emmanuel Macron said that no, together with Ukraine we have cards, because you have, first of all, wrong information about situation in Russia, because everyone analyzed success in the front line. But even Donald Trump, several weeks ago, said a phrase that Russia should win this war for several weeks, at least for 2 months, but not be at the fourth year of full-scale war. In February, it will be the first anniversary. So it means that Russian success is not so large, but Russian economy, faced with more and more problems and taxes inside Russia since the 1st of January, so less than a month, will seriously increase. And that's what European partners say, not only to Ukraine that we will be with you, but to US, that Russia has economic problems, and that is the cards in our hands. Thank you, Henry.
Well, Trump actually also publicly criticized Zelensky for not reading the latest proposal. Does this intervention complicate Zelensky's discussion with European leaders in London?
I think that statement, one more argument that Europe should think about their autonomization from the United States of America. That United States of America should not determine what Europe should do. And unfortunately, Europe lost its subjectiveness. They not become the main player in the world, because they always think that, oh, we together with US and we will do what US asks us. Now, when US said that we don't want to think about Europe according to newly adopted security strategy of US, they said that we are concentrating on our hemisphere. We don't think about your hemisphere. It's your problems. So that's why I think that that statement that President Zelensky don't read it. President Zelensky read it, of course. Furthermore, we have a lot of talks and rumors inside Ukraine, and not only inside Ukraine, who is the author of this plan. Because in Ukraine, we're sure that it's Russia, and not only in Ukraine, we think that Russia is the author. Even leaks demonstrated by Bloomberg that talks between special Trump envoy Steve Witkoff and President Putin advisor Ushakov and the head of their investment committee, Dmitriev, they, in these discussions that Bloomberg received, they discussed this plan as a Russian plan. So that's why Ukraine don't want to adopt a plan made by Russia. I so want to emphasize that according to US legislation, US should not present any proposition from other countries without expertise from the Department of State and Congress of US. There was no first and second, but US presented. So it's questions whether US and Donald Trump administration are not violating their local legislation. Thank you, Henry.
Well, European leaders clearly want to strengthen Zelensky's negotiating position against Putin's demands on Donbass. But what leverage does Europe realistically have today?
So, first of all, Europe should say that the sanction will remain. Secondly, the destiny of Russian frozen assets that is situated in Europe. Europe still has discussions that, oh no, we should not give it to Ukraine because it's Russian money and it should be returned to Russia. But if you really want to press on Russia, say that we will give to Ukraine your assets, because it formed the feeling inside Russia that they pay their money for their own aggression. People who actually understand that it's Central Russian Bank money, understand that it's their money, and their money will be used for helping Ukraine. I think that is the main pressure that Europe could do on Russia. And unfortunately, they still not do that on the fourth year of full-scale war. But okay, discussion go on, and a lot of influential people, Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz, a lot of lawyers, all of them made the statement that this asset should be given to Ukraine with one purpose: to press on Russia and to demonstrate that the aggressor will pay money for the crimes that he committed. Thank you, Henry.
Well, the meeting took, it is taking place after weeks of frustration in European capitals about being sidelined by Washington. Is the London summit Europe's attempt to reassert ownership over the peace track? I mean, there was big emphasis on defense and military support, but is it about reasserting the ownership over the peace track?
You know, Henry, actually, Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, expressed his skepticism about this peace plan. And as for me, it's the opinion of not only of Mr. Merz, it's opinion of many Europeans who said, guys, the plan of peace in Ukraine should not be written out of Europe by US or even by Russia, the aggressor. And when someone says that without US this story could not be successful for Ukraine, the European country says that we will try at least. Let's take into account that Europe is so union of many countries, not of all the European Union countries support Ukraine, but the main economies support Ukraine, and they said we have resources, we have military production, and we can work now about increasing of our security and helping to Ukraine, because Ukraine in future will be part of our security, because now Ukraine is the only experienced army in the European continent with good experience, and of course European Union think that they should use it. So that's why this meeting one more chance to say that Europe, as I said, with Ukraine, that the plan, peace plan, real peace plan, will be made with participants of the European Union, because European Union will include Ukraine in future. So Ukraine will be part of European Union. That's why it's a problem of European Union too. And the fact that they still have sources, and the foreign minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Sikorski, said that we are ready for 3 years war with Russia. Yeah, thank you.
Well, Mr. Urs, if we're just basically looking at the dynamics of the situation, Europe is meeting Zelensky face to face, while the US is speaking directly to Moscow. How does this parallel diplomacy shape Kiev's strategy?
So, of course, Kiev pay attention on the talks that happened in Moscow, but let's be frank, there was a rumors that Russia was closed to say that, okay, we agree on this proposition of yes for peace plan, but then Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the husband of Donald Trump's daughter, they returned to US without meeting with European partners that expected, and without meeting with Zelensky, and said that we will talk with Ukrainian representatives in the US. Some people say that it's happened because at the same moment of the visit of Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff in Moscow was Wang Yi. It's the second person in China. And let's remind the article in the Hong Kong newspaper South China Morning Post, according to which Wang Yi said to Kaja Kallas, the chief diplomat of European Union, that China don't need the end of this war because this war attracts a lot of attention, and this attention is not goes in China, and for China it's China beneficiary of this situation. And so China needs this war was as long as possible. Non-victory of Russia, non-victory of Ukraine, just the war of wars. And that's why attempt to finish this war faced with problems of communication with China, because China say no, we don't need this end of this war. And leaks that happened in Bloomberg, I mean talks between Steve Witkoff and Ushakov and Dmitriev, as for me, China can stay besides those links, they can organize it.
Well, many political observers are saying that the European leaders want to send a message to Putin, more than once actually, that his demands are unacceptable. Now, in your view, is the London meeting symbolic? Is it a symbolic position, or the start of serious European role in a future peace deal, do you think?
So, of course, it's demonstration, as I said, unity of Europe, and that forming of this future peace plan happening now on our eyes, and that Europe still want to say that we have a voice on this round table of the peace talks. Our opinion should be taken into account. And now, of course, there will be at least signal that we will send support to Ukraine. But in future, who knows? Probably we still will discuss idea that Emmanuel Macron described probably more than 2 years ago about European soldiers in Ukraine. So if US will demonstrating their attempt be out of this conflict, Europe can say no, we want to be part of it because it's war in our territory, and we will see what the US will actually do after.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ivan, who's the advisor at the Ukraine National Center, thank you very much, sir, for your insights. A year after the fall of Assad, a divided Syria struggles to escape the cycle of violence. The Guardian reports describing a country celebrating its return to the global stage while facing unresolved grievances at home. The 53-year rule of the Assad family ended after an 11 dismantled the security apparatus. Syrians filled Damascus to celebrate, and President Ahmed al-Shara promised to rebuild a strong and just Syria. But The Guardian notes that stalled transitional justice is fueling new cycles of violence, including targeted killings and sectarian tensions, particularly among Alawite and Druze communities. Shara's diplomatic outreach, including ties with Donald Trump, has reintegrated Syria internationally, even as local clashes and a fragile political transition threaten efforts to rebuild the state and shape a new social contrast. For more on Syria, we are joined from Damascus by Mr. Sheher al-Sheher, the Professor of International Studies. Dr. Sheher, welcome to In Focus. Now, 1 year after the fall of Assad, the political transition is still described as fragile by the international observers. How would you characterize the overall political environment today? What indicators suggest progress or setbacks in state building?
Good evening to you and to everyone who's watching. Actually, it's been a year, and I think that we've reached lots of what we wanted. We didn't reach our ultimate goals, of course, but we've also achieved a lot so far when it comes to freedom and economy and reconstructing Syria in general and reconstructing the army. We saw a military show today, and so much discipline that sends a message here. Everyone being, we're standing around the Syrian flag. This was very great, and it sends an important message. And so, as I said, we've reached lots of goals, but we're not there where we want yet. We know we have some issues in northern Syria, and maybe these problems are actually heading to an escalation. We don't know if we'll reach a truce or if things will go worse, but I think that we'll have a truce.
Mm-hmm. Well, the transitional leadership under Ahmed al-Shara has emphasized unity and institution building. But what are the main priorities shaping governance there today?
I think that an institution building is hard here. Syria was completely destroyed. We didn't have any political life, and so this is why we don't have parties or opposition. And so I think the priority here will be to focus on the political and economic fields. I think that when it comes to economy, we've actually achieved so much so far because we've been trying to lift the sanctions of Syria, and I think that this will happen in the upcoming days by the American Congress, and this means that we'll enter 2026 with no sanctions, and of course this will allow more foreign investments in Syria and will allow us to rebuild Syria. But when it comes to the politics, we are working towards having political parties and a cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Well, regional and international actors expressed renewed interest in Syria's stability and recovery. So how should Syria go about engaging with the external partners in a way that supports the reconstruction process?
Yeah, I think that there is Arab and regional support and international support also to the Syrian government, and they understand what Syria is going through now. And I think that it is very important that we got back trust between Syria and its supporters and funds, especially the U.S. And I think that things are getting better by the day. And so here, Syria depends on the zero problems policy. They don't want any issues with any country. They just want to focus on reconstruction. But this is also very important here. We know that reconstruction needs investment, needs funding, and we need foreign investment and an investment climate. And so we need stability in the country to reach this. But Israel is still playing a role in preventing this stability in Syria.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you've mentioned, the economic situation remains difficult. It is high on the agenda with high living costs and limited job opportunities. So what would you say are the practical steps that the transitional government can take to stimulate economic recovery, attract investment after 1 year of the regime change? Is waiting for international and foreign investment the shortest and quickest way possible?
Things in Syria aren't that well right now, but if we look back at what we achieved throughout this year, the Syrians don't actually have that much of a problem with things in Syria. They didn't even have access to bread, but now actually they're offered in large numbers. And then also the Syrian currency here is getting better when it comes to its value compared to the American dollar. And then also the government wants to better the living situation, and things are getting better by a 200% actually. And as I said, there is foreign investment. We have here people buying in Salag, and Syrians from abroad are coming back to their home. As you know, actually millions of Syrians were living abroad before in neighboring countries, but now they're coming back to their countries and starting their own project or buying houses, and so things are going back to normal. But as I said, sanctions is what we're looking to lift for now.
Mm-hmm. A big issue in Syria is the importance of the inclusive political participation. How can political representation be broadened to include youth, women, and the minorities in decision-making structures in Syria?
Actually, when it comes to women and youth, I think that the youth in Syria is what's taking over everything now when it comes to the president and then people in the military and the security organizations. So actually here they're plus 40, and so here the youth are leading the country now, and so empowering youth isn't a topic of discussion now really. And when it comes to women, yeah, I know we have a problem with it because the Syrian community doesn't trust the women's role, and they need to let go of this policy and of this ideology. And so this is why the government needs to start empowering women when it comes to the cabinet. For example, we know that there were elections, and they already chose 2/3, and then the last third will be assigned by the president. And the president said that they will have a large number of women in this third because they want to empower women, as I said. And also when it comes to minorities, they want to empower them as well. But then we had the elections weren't held in some places like Suaida, for example, because of the situation there. But the country wants to hold elections in these places. But as I said, now representation situation is getting better, but there is a problem when it comes to serious democratic forces. Like they want to assign a minister that represents Christians, or someone who's Jewish, for example. And so here, this is understandable actually, because there is no officials here or a full-on government, and so this is what we're working towards right now.
So is it a case of cultural acceptance or the implementation of a strong political will, instead of just having certain quotas for women and minorities' participation within the political landscape in Syria and their involvement, the practical involvement in Syria's social and political life?
Of course, empowering here, empowering any category means that we need to make this category stronger. And so, as I said, the youth are taking over. Women aren't dealt with just right now, and they're working towards this. Actually, the women themselves actually are facing a problem here. Women aren't electing each other, and so we need to change this culture here. They need more awareness, and they need time to understand, and they need to we need a strategy to make the people here more aware about the importance of women's role when it comes to teaching them in schools, for example, and then also launching campaigns on social media, and how important it is for women to participate in the political life, and to have a practical participation role, not just someone who is there. And so yes, we need practical participation.
Well, looking ahead, Mr. Sheher, what are the key conditions for Syria to transition from a post-conflict environment into a stable and sustainable political system capable of gradual economic and social development?
I think that always after wars, they always talk about a political transformation and a democratic transformation. And so when we talk about democracy here, we've postponed it because of everything that's going on. And so any talks about a democratic transformation now isn't really that precise now, if I can say. But we have political transition, yes. The Syrian government has actually achieved so much when it comes to the Syrians and to Syria in general before the regime has failed. And so before, Syria was actually causing troubles to and bother the neighboring countries and the countries in the region. But now Syria is being reintegrated into the community and into its neighboring countries, and people are supporting, and the countries are supporting the Syria and the Syrians, and actually they are in awe of everything that Syria has achieved in a year, especially when it comes to foreign policy. And so yes, things aren't going 100% perfectly, and yes, there are some flaws, and we can get past them in the upcoming year.
Well, many Syrians did go back home over the past year hoping for stability, but what would you say are the most visible or significant changes in daily life for citizens in terms of services, local administration, compared to the previous era?
I think that this actually needs. I need something. I need to make something clear here. Actually, there is internal displacement. People are leaving their cities, for example, leaving the hot zones, the capital, especially, and then also Syrians are coming from abroad, going back to their homes. But a lot of the cities here have been destroyed, actually, and those people who came back to Damascus and are staying there are actually going to reconstruct it as they grew up there and they raised their children there, and so this is why people are going back to their homes to claim them and rebuild them. And so now this is causing pressure in the capital actually, because when it comes to services, there is so much pressure. When it comes to services, they cannot fulfill the needs of all of these people just at once. And then also when it comes to Syria, the tribes don't really like what's happening now with Syria and with the democratic forces in Syria. Let me remind you that these democratic forces that take over the most important area in Syria, where they have fuel and petroleum, they haven't actually started reconstruction or any facilities that can help rebuild
Yes.
Syria here. Like we don't have any universities, school or anything there, and so we need some kind of plan here from the government to secure the return of people who were internally displaced to go back
Yes.
to their own cities.
Professor Sheher, the Professor of International Studies, joining us from Damascus. Thank you very much, sir, for your insights. A lot of developments taking place on the European side of the Ukraine-Russian conflict. Also, 1 year has passed since the fall of the Assad regime, and a lot more to look forward to in Syria. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode of In Focus. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.